Yeah, well, the joke on the set, though, was we're all professionals, just not at this. We had, people from, amazing people, world champion freedivers, all these people came together and, we just used the skills, the best skills that everybody had to try to focus in on this one problem. And we came back with some remarkable stuff. I mean, when we met with the Taiji mayor's office, they said, we treat the dolphins like our relatives. We regard ourselves as the ancestors of relatives. We kill them as quickly and painlessly as possible. And of course, what they do back there is anything but. Sometimes it takes hours for these animals to die. We have clocks on these things that we could, we time how long it takes them to do a kill and how long it takes these animals to suffer. Sometimes a couple hours. They basically harpoon them and bleed them to death. But the film is mercifully short on this. You never see a harpoon actually penetrate a dolphin. Most of the imagery is actually very surreal.
Fit this into the story of going to Tokyo and talking to people, because they justified it in Taiji, saying you are attacking our culture. Ric O'Barry, when you went to Tokyo and talked to people and said, is it your culture to kill these dolphins and eat their meat, you were met by shock from person after person you just interviewed on the street.
Exactly, and even today, I was in New York yesterday with Japanese people, and they're shocked. This is not the Japanese culture. It's the culture of some few remote villages, perhaps, but not the Japanese people. They don't even know that it's going on. So, yeah, they're pretty shocked when they see the footage. And it's hard to believe it's been going on for 400 years, and people still don't know about it. Even places close to Taiji, Kikatsura and Shingu and that area, Osaka, people are absolutely shocked.
Can you talk, Ric, about the International Whaling Commission, the IWC, and the role of Japan in it to this day?
The International Whaling Commission, I think, will go down in history as a ship of fools who failed miserably to do their job. When I was at the International Whaling Commission meeting in the film with the television set, I was trying to bring attention to the fact that at that time, 23,000 whales, dolphins are small whales, are being killed in Japan, and nobody in that room is talking about it.
Just to clarify what you're saying, just to clarify, when you said when you were in there with a television set, you're not confusing it by saying a television, meaning a television camera. You were carrying a television set through the commission to show them the film on that set.
Yeah, I was wearing a television set, and I wanted them to see what goes on in Japan, because that's a bigger issue. They're not talking about this at the International Whaling Commission. They think that whaling, the whaling issue, involves 1,000 whales in the Southern Ocean, and that's what whaling is. Actually, what happens in Japan is a bigger issue, and they're not talking about it. And by the way, the dolphin captivity issue, this multi-billion-dollar industry, has in the past lobbied the IWC to keep small cetaceans, dolphins and porpoises, off the protected list. They don't want them protected because they're afraid they might not be able to capture them in the future.
And the role of Japan in pressuring the Caribbean nations?
Yeah, well, pressuring them, they buy them. They simply buy their vote. That's what's going on. And that's one of the wonderful things about this film. It's the first time all of this is exposed. I've never seen it exposed before, the actual corruption that's taking place in Japan, in the Caribbean. Yeah.
So this film makes it big, Ric. This film makes it big, and then you return to Taiji. Can you tell us what happened when you went back to the Cove, to the city where the Cove is?
I've returned many times since the film. I was going there long before the film was made, and I continue to go back, and we will until we can shut it down. We have a team on the ground, 2 people there right now, and I'm in touch with them every day. What's happening right now, because of the film, actually, they've shut the Cove down, and the fishermen, and they've moved offshore. They've made an artificial cove out of nets, and they're driving the dolphins in there so they can't be photographed. They know about the rock cams. What they don't know is, are they on candid camera every day? So they they're starting to kill them offshore, and that really is a measure of our success, because their circle is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and it will at some point be abolished.
Louie Psihoyos, you not only exposed what's going on in Japan, but you also exposed the selling of dolphin meat as food in restaurants in the United States. Can you talk about what you did in Los Angeles?
Yeah, well, back in October, way before that we were on the, even the short list for the Oscars, we had heard about a restaurant, a very high-end sushi restaurant called The Hump in Santa Monica, selling whale meat. And so we had an undercover operation to expose that. We had, we brought the team in to film it surreptitiously. We had, hidden cameras and purses. We had, voice recordings. And we took the information that we had to NOAA, federal officers of NOAA, that's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And they said, this is great, but we need to have a chain of custody of the material. So we had to do another operation. They said, can you come back into town? I said, well, this is very expensive. This is, this ordering off the menu that you do is, the chef's special is very expensive, and getting the team back was going to be really, expensive. And when we got nominated for the Oscars, I said, well, let's get the team back together. Let's do some work between all these, these parties, these Oscar parties. We would be going into work with NOAA federal agents to bust this restaurant, and it all came to a head right during the Oscars, where the news was released. They did a raid the Friday before the Oscars and busted the restaurant. And so, to me, they were serving sei whale. This is the third largest of the great whales, and it's an endangered animal. It's a UN protected, species that they've been carved up and put into, little $100 strips of sushi. And to me, this was better than winning the Oscar, because it's real. I mean, it's, a Little Gold Man is great. It's been good to raise awareness for the film. But, all the awards that to me are collateral of trying to achieve these real issues of, trying to stop these endangered animals from being killed, trying to stop the animals for entertainment. That's the real reward here. This is what we're after. And so that to me was just, it was a huge, huge victory.
At the end of the movie, Ric and Louie, you recommend that people text the word dolphin to 4414. In fact, Ric, that's what you held up at the Oscars, even though the two of you couldn't speak. What happens when you do that?
It's access to information, basically. And, a couple of 100,000 people have signed up and get information about this issue, and they get involved in the issues. That's what's going to stop this thing, is people getting involved. I mean, we can't do it alone, and the government is not going to do it. Governments protect corporations, not people and other animals. That's what happened in Minamata in the 1950s. The government stepped in and covered up for the Chisu factory. As a matter of fact, they were found guilty by the Japanese Supreme Court of covering it up. So I don't expect the Japanese government or any government to solve this problem in Japan. It's going to take the consumers, people who actually buy the dolphin meat, are going to stop buying it, and also whale meat. Louie talked about the restaurant in Santa Monica selling whale meat. Well, there's a lot of whale restaurants in Japan who are selling counterfeit whale meat. They're selling horse meat as whale meat, and dolphin meat, contaminated dolphin meat. And when the consumer learns that information, they are going to stop buying it. So it's really about supply and demand. All of these issues, you have to go after the demand side, whether it's lumber or dolphins or whatever. And so that's what's happening.
You really are responsible for creating a love of dolphins of so many millions, certainly at least of Americans, with Flipper. Tell us who Flipper was.
Flipper was a wild animal that lived in Biscayne Bay before we captured her and dragged her kicking and screaming to the Miami Seaquarium, put her in a tank, and gave her a stage name, Flipper. Her name was really Kathy. Well, not really. Her real name was... The dolphins have a signature whistle that their mother gives them, and we changed her name and made her a television star. And yeah, Flipper was probably the best and the worst thing that ever happened to dolphins. On the one hand, it did expose the world to dolphins, but on the other hand, it created this multi-billion-dollar industry. And capturing dolphins, we pretty much depleted Biscayne Bay. I captured over 100 while I worked on the capture boat at the Miami Seaquarium.
Actually, Flipper was more than one dolphin, is that right? A number of female dolphins.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like Lassie. Lassie was actually 12 dogs. And so there is no real Lassie. It's a stage name. And so is Flipper. And so is Shamu. Shamu is whatever killer whale happens to be performing in front of you that moment.
What happened to the dolphin that you named Kathy, that we knew as Flipper? Kathy
committed suicide a couple of days before Earth Day, which was April 22nd, 1970, the first Earth Day. I know that's a very strong word, but it is accurate. Dolphins are not automatic air breathers like we are. If you think about that for a moment, they can end their life anytime they want to by simply not taking the next breath. And I have seen that since many times in the Cove, especially in Japan, when the captures are taking place and the slaughters are underway. Some of them just stop breathing. They just give up, take a breath, sink to the bottom, and that's it. And yeah, that's dolphins do commit suicide.
And Kathy committed suicide in your arms?
Kathy committed suicide in my arms at the Miami Seaquarium, yeah, in 1970. And that's what turned me around. You were asking me what turned me around. That's the thing that turned me against the industry. I started, well, about a year or two before that, I realized dolphins didn't belong in captivity, but I didn't do anything about it. I was getting paid too much money, for one thing. And it was a great lifestyle, I mean, if you can imagine. But yeah, when she died, that was the turning point for me. I could have stayed with that industry. You know, SeaWorld didn't exist then. It was, Seaquarium was the largest dolphin amusement park in the world. And there were only 3. Today there are scores of them all over the place. There are 50 alone in Japan.
Your message to young people in this country and around the world.
Please don't buy a ticket for a dolphin show. That is the solution to that problem. That's based on supply and demand, and if we stop buying tickets for silly dolphin shows, that problem will go away real quick. You know, there's only 3 things killing dolphins: our pollution, our fishing nets, and our captivity. Captivity kills. These are sonic creatures. They live in a world of sound. Their primary sense is sound. They're sound oriented. We're light oriented, visually oriented. That's our primary sense. So to place a free-ranging sonic creature in a concrete box for casual amusement is simply wrong. I mean, there is no connection between dolphin tricks and conservation. It's the big lie.
Ric O'Barry, the star of the Academy Award-winning documentary The Cove. The film was directed by Louie Psihoyos, who says Japan has issued an arrest warrant for him for conspiracy to disrupt commerce. Ric O'Barry is headed back to Taiji, Japan, just in time for the start of dolphin hunting season, September 1st. And that does it for today's broadcast. If you'd like a copy of the show, you can go to our website at democracynow.org. Happy birthday to Nick Gilla and Kellan Innocent. Welcome back. Shrifa Dokadus. Thank you to Anjali Kamat, Mike Burke. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for joining us.